So, I mean, we covered, didn't we, last week, contracting options, which is a little difficult when you haven't sort of come across the jargon. And there was the traditional route, the sort of non-traditional route, design and build, and there was management, stroke, construction, contracting. Quite difficult concepts, but once you got your head around them, should be okay. And there was obviously PFI partnerships. 1.2 was the contract stuff, which wasn't too bad. NEC, FIDIC and that stuff, fairly factual. There was pricing, which wasn't too bad. And then there was the investment appraisal, payback, accounting rate of return, etc. So it was quite a big section, wasn't it, that week? So if we look at what we're doing tonight, says Dave frantically, is that sharing with you okay? I hope.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, great. Yeah, no, that's fine. Those were the pass rates, in fact. Their September last year was 52, then it 50, 69, so 54, then 77 July. So I noticed all the L5s were about 90% in the July exams, which doesn't mean everyone's worked hard. I think they've finally sorted out the glitches in some of the questions. So hopefully we'll get some better pass marks across the board with everyone, because there's certainly been some issues, I think. So, okay then, what's section 2 about? Costing, fixed and variable, which links to break-even budgets, value engineering, consortium-based procurement, and open book costing. So basically all stuff you've done before, really. So pricing, we can have variable pricing, which is usually based on an indices. So we might have a contract price adjustment clause in a contract, and that's often linked to an indices, such as CPI, inflation rate or something. So there are index and price adjustment formula that you can use in a contract to redetermine the price. So that's one way, having a price with price adjustment. And that's fairly straightforward, that if labour goes up 10%, well, the price of the labour element goes up by 10%. So I'm pretty okay with indexation. We can have post-contract price adjustments, and they could be authorised by a single person, should be confirmed in writing. Nothing really on there that's not common sense if they asked you it, I don't think. Budgetary control, so budgets, why do we have them? Pain of our life. Well, they're to plan, coordinate, communicate, motivate, control and evaluate. So there are benefits of budgeting. You could get a simple question, which of these is a benefit of budgeting in project management? I don't think it would be hard to work out what the benefits were and which weren't if you got that sort of question. So don't route learn the list, just have an overview. So how do we set budgets? Could come down from the top. Moses could come down with his tablet and say, here you are, this is what you're doing. No involvement, or it could be bottom up, which is quite slow. And there's obviously rolling budgets, flexible budgets, zero-based budgets and all that. But in projects, it tends to be either top down or bottom up. So that's easy. We can get costing information on material, labour, overheads, or indirect costs, as you might call them. We can work out life cycle costs, looking at the full cycle, which covers buying. Well, there should be pre-acquisition in there, operating, owning, disposing. So you've done lifetime costing before. There can be wasteful costs in a design, and we get rid of that with value engineering. So before we start building, we might do value engineering on the design and see whether we can improve value and reduce cost. We can't do value analysis because we aren't going to build a second number bridge. You build the one, and once you've built it, that's your lot. So you can only do VE on buildings and construction. You can't do VA because you aren't going to repeat it. Phases, 6 phases of VE. I, S, E, D, P, I. Yeah, be an easy multiple choice that. What's the fault, you know, what are the phases of VE? What's the first phase? What's the last phase? So VE is named on your syllabus. Make sure you've got that. When should we use VE? Guess what? As soon as you can, because the later you leave it, the less savings you can make. So the sooner you do it in the process, and there's lots of those silly graphs around showing you, you know, it's too late once you get onto constructing it to start redesigning it. I can't see you getting any charts. Just some definitions of value there. Function divided by cost. So to improve value, it isn't just reducing costs, it can be improving the functionality of a building or a bridge or a hotel or whatever it is. And some definitions of value: cost, exchange, use, and esteem there. But again, you've done them at level 5 ops management, so they should be fairly familiar with you. We might use consortium procurement. The obvious benefits of getting together. Common sense really, isn't it? I think benefits of having buying alliances. Can't see him asking you a difficult question there. Some strange diagrams like that in the study guide, many to many. Can you see consortium's not as complex? Don't know why, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, SC. Oh, framework agreements. Yeah, they've put in framework agreements. But they can be difficult to manage. Allocating overheads, sharing out gains, getting buy-in. Standard problems, I think, with consortium. We can use open book costing in construction, and we may need to if we're doing gain share, because the supplier is going to have to prove their costs, so they're going to have to open up their books. So they might provide data. There's a template there for open book costing where they're going to detail their costs, which they're just the same as that list really. And that was 2.1. And then we're on to just a little bit of financial management, which is budgets again, tracking, claims, and remedial actions. So a bit thing. So we've done the estimating budget bit, top down, bottom up. Right, this is new and I don't think you've done this before. It came into the level 4 exams after you did it on L4M1 and L4M8. How do you come up with cost estimates? Well, projects are different, so you can actually look at past projects and try and compare them to the current project and come up with an estimate, and that's analogous and estimating. A perhaps more common one is parametric or statistical modelling, where you might say, well, if it cost £1,000 to build 2 trenches and 1 house, what would it cost to have 3 trenches and 4 houses? And you just pro rata and model up. You could build it up from the bottom, try and estimate every little cost that goes into a task and add it up. New to this study guide is this rather silly 3-point estimate, which is the most optimistic plus the most pessimistic plus 4 times the most likely outcome divided by 6. They've pinched it from PERT, P-E-R-T, which is a program management technique, but it isn't PERT. But they're saying it's a more realistic way of estimating cost. Rather than just use the most likely estimate of cost, you sort of calculate the worst case and best case. Because estimates are skewed, we take 4 times the most likely and 1 of each of the others. So in my mocks, there's a couple of questions on that where you have to estimate using 3-point estimate, the cost of a particular activity in a project. So they might say the optimistic estimate is £10, the the pessimistic optimist is £1,000 and the most likely is £200. What is the expected value using 3-point estimate? Very simple maths, but if you haven't seen that before, so I think
Dave,
that's, yeah.
are we going to need to have a calculator and everything for this exam? Because it seems like a lot of calculations in it.
I think so, because you've got investment appraisal and there might be some very simple calcs. I definitely would.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you get a calculator on the software, do you? I don't think you do.
I don't think so. No, I think they do give you one if you ask for one, but I'd rather just take my own.
Yeah, I mean, the answers are going to be there, but to obviously get a good guess, you might need to do a bit of rough and ready calculation. So get your head around that analogous parametric bottom-up 3 points. It's new. Worst case scenario is probably one question, but it's a mark that you might as well have. How do we know our project's doing? Well, you might think that's easy, but it isn't. It really is difficult. What percentage of an activity is complete in terms of cost and time? Planned progress against actual, work in progress, the impact on the critical path, payment progress, work content, outstanding requirements. Let me just see if I can find it there. Sorry, I'll go back 3 slides in a minute. But if I give you that chart there and said, how's that project doing? What would you say?
I'd say if it carries on the way it's going, is it going to run over?
Any thoughts, Ryan, on that?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. It's under budget.
Yeah, so you might say, if you only use cost as your measure, this project's looking good because to date we haven't spent as much as we thought we would. Unfortunately, it could be because you've only done half the work you should have. So you can't tell how well a project's doing just from the cost. You also can't tell how well a project's doing just by have we completed the jobs we should have done, because you may have spent more than you should have spent. So in fact, what we use in project management is something called earned value. We look at what have we actually earned from the jobs at budget cost, from the jobs we've completed. Now here where we get difficulty, earned value is strictly not in the study guide. Can you see I've put there an ISG? But earned value is a measure that combines time and cost, because you can't tell how a project's doing just looking at time on its own, nor can you do it by looking at cost on its own. You need a combined measure, and that combined measure in projects is called earned value. So we'll come back to earned value. So go back to measures of progress. So standard measures there. Controls, time checking. We can have reports because they'll give us early warnings, they give us more information, better planning, nothing new there. Right, CIPS seem rather mad on types of controls. Controls can be cybernetic, automatically correcting. There can be go, no-go, testing to see whether some condition has been met. Or there could be controls after the event to see how they can learn lessons learned and improve in future. The horse has already bolted with post-control. Cybernetic, they have a diagram like this in the study guide. And basically, we've got a feedback loop and there is adjustment to the project, a bit like your central heating system where you've got a thermostat. The house is getting too cold, it cuts the heating in. If it's getting too warm, it turns it off. So cybernetic is automatic control, and you need an accurate baseline means of measuring the work. You need to be able to identify any variances, and then you need to be able to correct them. And it gives this diagram here on projects. It is really a load of bunkum. You can't automatically adjust in a project, but you do need feedback. But CIPS do use this term, which you've come across before, cybernetic control. So just as a concept, think, yeah, that's one I need to make sure I understand the definition. But that's about all. The worst case question could be, which of these do you need for cybernetic control to work? And they give you a list and you have to pull out some of them for. So that could be the worst case scenario on that one. So that's to do with earned value. And earned value is to do with how much work have you actually done. And at budget, what's that worth? And then you can compare it to other measures to get variances, which are this BCWS, BCWP, and it's not in the study guide. So I've taken most of the questions out of my test bank, but I've left this in just as a concept. So most of the books will show in projects you plot your planned cost against your earned value, planned value against earned value, and the difference is a variance. So we plot variances. That's how we control budget. So don't worry too much about the earned value. That's the terminology with it. Earned value is budgeted cost of the work performed. So if you've built 5 walls and the budget for each wall was £100, well, you've earned £500, but you might have spent 600, so you're 100 over budget. So it gives you a much better measure of where you are on a project. But don't worry too much about PV, EV, BAC and EAC. They're not in the guide, but I think they should be. That's why I'm putting these in. Why do we get variations? Scope, floods, rain, price increases, you name it, there can be a million reasons. So we need to manage the claims process, and it's better to try and prevent claims pre-tender by getting the specs right and tendering properly. We can try and mitigate claims, we can identify claims, we can quantify claims, and we can try and resolve claims. And that's from the study guide, that diagram. Right, last couple of concepts on this. We've got a new 6 Sigma problem solving method in the study guide called the 8 Ds. And it's not Dave, 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 it's 1D, 2D, 3D. And it is what it is: form the team, problem description. It's about finding root causes, taking into account just facts, no assumptions. Ford originally created it, and it's said to be a useful problem-solving method. I personally don't know anyone that uses it, but it's there in the study guide, the 8D method. So just
we use it.
Do you? Oh, thank. Is it a proper 6 Sigma tool, Ryan?
Yeah, we use it all over the world.
Oh, great. Well, you've reassured me there that I shouldn't be cynical about this stuff. Excellent. So you'll know it already then.
Yeah. So it's on your test mods that I did before this.
It is. I've put it in there.
What's the first point? I'm sure I put in there team formation and it said it was wrong.
Oh, do you want me to check that? I'll check after this session. Yeah. Let me just write that down, Ryan. Test mods, Ryan, 8D, answer. Yeah, I did do them in rather a rush, all those. Yeah. So sorry about that, Carly. You've got to learn the 8D model. Or even Lucy. Right. Okay, 2.3 then, the legal stuff. And again, if you can remember your level 4 and 5, there's nothing new in here really. Remedial actions, to provide an early warning of event, to instruct the contractor. So these are all remedial actions. We might use ADR, mediation conciliation, to resolve disputes. There's consequential losses. The breach of the contract must have caused the loss. The loss was reasonably foreseeable, and if it wasn't, you can't claim for it. The damages claimed for are reasonable, and the claimant isn't claiming for any loss that could have been avoided. So they're the 4 conditions of claiming consequential loss. We might have gone for liquidated damages instead if we haven't gone for unliquidated. Penalty clauses, whether they're called penalty or not, might not be held as applicable if the sum's extravagant. The clause is imposed once a contract is underway. So if it's unfair, it won't be allowed. Conditions go to the heart of the contract and you can void or rescind the contract. Warranty terms, you can't. You can only claim for damages. I'm not sure, Ryan and Lucy, whether you'd come across innominate terms in your studies or whether it's something that crept in after you've done your legal stuff. But there is a third term.
Does ring the bell.
Can you remember it, Ryan?
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't with me.
It rings a bell. I can't remember what it is, but I've
Yeah.
definitely heard the word.
Yeah, it was the Hong Kong Fur Shipping Company. So basically, we've got a terms and a contract, and we don't know whether it's either a condition or warranty until we see what happened in the contract and what was the result. Was the person who contracted someone denied the benefit of the contract, in which case it doesn't matter how you worded it, it will be deemed a condition. So the innominate terms, you might be able to cancel your contract and you might not. It depends on what actually happens when it's breached. So it's an in-between.
Did you have a video on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a video on it, Ryan. Obviously, Lucy was asleep. Yeah, it was the Hong Kong First Shipping Company. It's a really good little 5-minute clip on it.
I really don't remember. Yeah,
Sorry, Lucy, I'm getting
that's
it.
all right.
Yeah, so if you can't find it, shout me. But Hong Kong First Shipping, YouTube, innominate terms. I couldn't believe that the shipping company couldn't cancel and that, but the judges ruled that the ship provider wasn't substantially divided. Anyway, you'll see for yourself. So it's an important term, so make sure you learn the innominate. You might claim specific performance instead of damages, where the court will compel the party to execute the contract, but it only happens in certain circumstances, specific performance. NEC has particular clauses on termination. Obviously, if you haven't done what you should have done, haven't provided a bond, you can terminate the contract. The contracts can become frustrated. Could have been force majeure, which eventually turns into frustration. Something could have been destroyed. It's impossible or becomes illegal. Termination clauses, I redid these the other week. So I realised it was a bit vague what I'd done originally. So there is 2 types. Termination for default, which is what you'd all associate with a contract if the supplier isn't performing, lets you down, doesn't deliver, whatever, you cancel it. But the other one is convenience. You just don't want to go ahead because you think the project's not worth it anymore. So you just cancel it. And as long as you've got that clause in, you can do it. And it wasn't something I'd really come across, but there's lots of legal stuff on it. So you can terminate it for a cause, or you can terminate it for convenience. And obviously, if you do it for convenience, you have to pay for the costs incurred to date, but you don't have to pay the supplier the loss of profits. Only maybe a percentage of the profits on the work done to date. So the concept is very important, and it's not too hard to get your head around. Anyone come across that in the studies? No. So termination clause, there's a sample one there, and the contractor saying, look, if we cancel because of convenience, we'll pay for the work completed. We'll give you 10% of the cost of work done as well as. So there's a sample there, but you won't get the overhead for the office. You'll only get overhead for stuff on site. So overheads is a problem for the supplier. Some of the old contracts, JCT, talk about determination clauses, but determination is really termination. And you can tie yourselves in knots if you aren't careful on that one. So just bear in mind that word determination. Right, now we want to get rid of the project. We want the client to take it off our hands. We want them to sign it off. And we want to learn from what we've done. And we'd have the project reports. So what do we do? Prepare for it. Prepare premature closure, hand over products, evaluate the project, recommend closure. 5 activities in closing a project. What is acceptance? Well, we need well-specified requirement that's unique, current, consistent, a bit like a KPI. It's understandable, verifiable, traceable, prioritised. Very easy to ask questions on that. So they're features of and obviously if it isn't clearly specified, it's going to lead to disputes with handover and completion. So very clear scope and very clear requirement. The APM says handover is the point on the life cycle where the deliverables are handed over. No big surprise. There can be many mini handovers as the project proceeds, although it might be just one big one at the end. And a handover enables the owner to operate and maintain the plant through its lifetime. So it needs to be handed over correctly, especially if it's turnkey. How do we close a Prince project? We need to do it properly. We need to make sure the objectives in the PID have been met, that the fulfillment of the PID and the customer satisfaction of the deliverables, formal acceptance, confirm, make recommendations, lessons learned, end of project report. The good thing is you don't have to learn these lists. Questions will be there, but you could get asked which of these is part of project closure, which of these are a case study, and you might have to pull something out. We need clear KPIs when we're measuring projects. Project audits, very important. Audits ask key questions on project management and related to project goals. What did we do well, what didn't do well, etc. Benefits of an audit, nothing particularly hard there. Dimensions to audit, we can look at the efficiency, the impact for the customer, and how it's impacted the business. A simple template, an introduction, the current status on cost schedule, future project status, management issues, risk management. There's a million of these on the internet and in the books. How do we do an audit? Again, that looks fairly self-explanatory. Capturing knowledge is a bit harder for the concept because knowledge can be tacit, it can be hidden, it can be very hard to transfer, especially technical knowledge, technology, and innovation. So knowledge management is the process of systematic management of information and learning. Within projects, make knowledge management a package in the work breakdown structure, establish a point of contact, communicate, establish knowledge management system. So there's a fairly complex process there from Levin, and that's cited in the study guide. How do we manage knowledge? That's quite detailed, is that, isn't it? But knowledge can be explicit, in which case it's easy to capture because it's already known and written down, articulated, but tacit is the unknown stuff. It's personal know-how, comes from experience, and that's the hard stuff to capture. I was going to delete this slide because it's not in the study guide. It's the Nananka and Taguchi model of capturing knowledge. And it's quite complex. There are 4 ways, and that's why it's called the SECI model often: socialization, externalization, combination, internalization. So socialization turns knowledge from tacit to tacit. Externalization changes tacit to explicit. Combination changes explicit to explicit. So if we go around the outside, we can see how the knowledge changes. But they aren't going to ask you about Nananka. But some
I
of
remember
those,
doing that before, Dave, that the SECI model.
we have done it. It was in, I think, l6m5, wasn't it, maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's one of those that, even though it isn't in the study guide, it's still likely that somebody will say, well, it's in the recommended reading, so we put a question in. So I would you know, I've left that in the slides because I think it's always a danger. I think the words explicit and tacit are key to it, and having a procedure for capturing knowledge and how would you capture it, lessons learned, audits, meetings, reviews, etc. So this is quoted in your textbook from Polyanivova. I think Leeds United are trying to sign him. That we have reviews, we have debriefings, we have reflections, we have feedback, and these are all ways that we're trying to capture knowledge after a project. They aren't too bad, are they? Yeah, why don't we learn? Government, lack of senior manager endorsement, silo structures, pretty standard reasons. How do we review it? Reports, audits, staff, yeah. We issue project reports, and it can be made up of the PID, the case, etc. Issue quality risk and this, yeah. Lessons learned, PMBOK have a process. PMBOK is the PMI, body of knowledge. And there's another diagram there, which is a variation on it. Disseminate lessons, define lessons learned, collect, review. The main thing is to feed forward into future projects, but capturing the knowledge first. But I don't think anything's hard there. Okay, my favourite little bit here, and this is quite easy for you all. It's basically culture, culture, and culture. Most of this you've done before, I'm sure. So let's go for it. So we haven't done ingredients before. So as a word, ingredients is new. Can you see their second bullet, the ingredients of culture? So that word ingredients, what makes up culture? Well, it's artifacts, codes, history, assumptions, heroes, patterns of behaviours, all them sort of things. How do we observe culture? Take a walk around, look at the systems, the structures, how people are interacting. Sheen, which is levels of culture, and if I go back to the diagram, we've got that bullet point, levels of culture. So when we're talking about levels, think of this iceberg thing of sheen, or skines, sheen, I don't know how you pronounce them. So the stuff you can see, the top of the iceberg is the outward expressions, the observable stuff. And the stuff you can't see is the values and beliefs and underlying assumptions. And this is Sheen's levels of culture. So the top bit is what we see, the middle bit is what they say, and the basic assumptions, what they may not even realise. And I'm sure I've put a couple of questions in my multiple choice on Edgar Sheen. So that's on the, don't think, can you remember Lucy Ryan doing Sheen before?
Vaguely, I'd have to read over it again, but yeah, it does ring a bell.
Yeah. Then what is culture? Why is it important? Cultural web. We did that, I'm sure, quite a few times. Can you remember it? Or not? So the cultural web is my favourite cultural. Can you remember it, Ryan?
Yeah.
The cultural web, it was developed by Johnson and Scholes, and it is a web because of these overlapping circles. So they're saying culture is made up of stories, symbols, power structures, control systems, rituals and routines. And some of the silly study guides take paradigm out in the middle and put culture in there, but strictly the cultural web is all that. Culture isn't the middle thing, but you can think of it that way. So what is culture? So if you like there, you could remember the ingredients from that list, because that list there is very similar to the ingredients there. So what makes up culture? Well, it's all them things. So if you're going to change the culture, you have to change the stories, the control systems, the power structures, etc. Routines, the way we do things around here, symbols, events, objects, acts or people which have special meaning, political processes. And then the other culture in here is handy, power, role, task, person. Let me go back to that. So it does a fair stab at lots of cultures in there. The 4 types of culture: power, task, role, person. And again, could be in management you've come across that, and then you remember some have a picture of a temple for Zeus and Apollo, but don't learn the Apollo bit. Just learn the power, the role, the task, and the person. So that's the handies for cultural types. How do we change culture? Grab the moments, understand resistance, change elements, select. Not going to get asked them 8, but read them. Why do people resist? Perception, habit. Again, that's a slide we've done before. But we can get resistance in a company because of organisational reasons, not individual reasons. The culture, resources required, contracts, blaming culture. Lynch says, no, don't learn the Lynch one. Stick to the Mullins. I'll get rid of the Lynch. How do we deal with resistance? You should remember this from L6m1 and 2. We can educate, or we can go to the other extreme and hit them with a stick. Explicit and implicit coercion. So it goes, there are 6 there, methods from education through to explicit manipulation. Right, not named in the syllabus, but in the textbook is Hofstede's cultures. And there are now 6. I think there were 5 when you were doing them. There was 4 in the original study, and then he added a 5th, and he's added a 6th now, which is the indulgence one, is whether countries are indulgent or whether they're not. Western countries tend to be indulgent, and some of the other countries tend not to be. So you've got the 6 dimensions of Hofstede there, which I'm not a massive fan of at all. You probably realise there's another diagram of Hofstede showing you the dimensions. So I think you're just going to have to wade through these. There's a whole page and a half in the study guide on Hofstede. I think we did it in negotiation. Strictly, it describes international cultures. But of course, project could be international, but it could be employing. The textbook says it can be used to describe organisational cultures, but strictly it isn't organisation, it's international cultures, but don't go there. So you do need Hofstede, I'm afraid. What affects culture? Language, legal, values. Very similar to that. Cultural web, but this is a national culture, can you see? Not individual companies. The study guide throws in the competing values framework, which is quite an academic concept of 4 different cultures: clan, adocracy, rational goal, market, and hierarchy. Ooh. And it depends on the dimensions, internal, external, flexibility, control. I would suggest on this one that you look at the little video clip I've got on it and just my notes. There is the worry with all these models that you could get 4 companies and you're asked to put them into a box. And if one of these boxes is clan, adocracy or human relations and you haven't got a clue what it means, you're stuffed. I don't think I've put my notes, sorry, in there. Yeah, it was developed by Quinn and Cameron, and it indicates how a company operates, how employees collaborate and what their values are. To the left of the graph, the organisation is internally focused on what is important for us and how do we want work. To the right, if you're in that quadrant, the company is externally focused and is more focused on what is important to the outside world, the client and the market. At the top of the graph, the organisation wants flexibility, discretion, and at the bottom, the organisation values stability and control. So it isn't too bad, but it does just need 10 minutes to get your head round. And I'm 99% sure we've not covered that one. I think, well, wonderful. So how do we manage culture? We could ignore it, hope it goes away. We can try and manage around it. Or we can try and change how people behave in the culture through education or persuasion or coercion. We could just recruit and get rid of Ryan and Lucy and Dave because they're troublemakers and get yes men in. So one way is by recruiting certain type of people. Certainly where I've worked recently, it's self-perpetuated a certain type of lecturer because they're fitting with the department, so everyone's a clone of everyone because we're recruiting people that fit with the people that's there. And we can get rid of the ones who don't fit. So that list there is how you can manage culture. You can ignore it. Nothing much to learn there. You can try and manage around it. You can try and change the culture through education, coercion, recruitment. There's 2 6-step models there of change. Don't learn them both. And I'm trying to think which one's in the study guide. But the one on the right is very similar, looking at to Cotter's change model, where you develop a vision, you get commitment, you model the culture, you support the change, socialise. Yeah, the one on the right looks a better model to me. And Cotter and Schlesinger dealing with resistance. And don't confuse it with the education one earlier that we had. So participation, facilitation, etc. So that's one we've done before, certainly from Cotter. How do we deal with resistance? Same one, education right through to coercion. But good revision there because it's got advantages and disadvantages of each method. So if you look at them tactics, a few days before your exam, think, well, okay, what's the benefits of us doing it this way? But I think they're self-explanatory. I really don't think they're hard. Seatbelt, you did negotiation with me, which was compromise, bargain, emotion, logic, threat. Methods of persuasion. Logic is mentioned in the study guide. None of the others are, but yet there's been a sample question on all 5. So it's one of those, one of the methods is in the study guide, the other 4 aren't, but yet one of the CIPS sample question has all 5 methods. So learn the 5 methods, they're easy. We might have change leadership, we might be collaborative, consultative, or we might be more directive and coercive. So there are 4 styles of leadership there. And then we're about there. We can change the recruitment selection, we can reorganise the workforce, try and communicate new values, and we can change systems and procedures. So the last bit's quite fluffy, I'm afraid, apart from there's 4 models of culture in there, I think, to learn. And that's them all. Right, what's anyone's thoughts on that?
Quite repetitive, isn't it, on previous modules? So
Yes.
hopefully we'll be okay. Once I
I
get my
think
head around
so.
the calculation bits again.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you don't use that, you lose it, don't you? So I just need to try and remember what I'm doing with those.
Yeah. And as Ryan said, I think if you work through them questions, I think I'm sure there's about 120 in the bank. And I've covered most of it, I think, fairly well.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
So I think, yeah, that looks hopeful. Any questions from you, Ryan?
No, I don't think so. I think I'd be all right on this one. I haven't started l6m5 yet. I was just wondering if you've got the, you showed the pass percentage at the start of this one.
Yeah.
You got the pass rate of that one recently? Just out of interest.
I don't know if I've still got it up. I think the last exam was March. I'm pretty sure it was something like 75% from memory.
Okay.
So it was okay. It's just such a huge syllabus, isn't it? I think you're taking it, and is it Dave and there's somebody else taking it in there?
Dan's taking it.
Yeah.
I think we all are. I think all 5 of us are.
We are. But when are we having a revision session for that? Have we planned one yet?
I think we were my provisional, but obviously I'll be guided by all you lot, was to go for roughly the day after the exam for the first one and then try and squeeze another in a bit later on. Because I didn't think it would help if we did it before you sat this exam. I don't know what you think.
I'd say maybe not the day after. What about like 2 days after?
Okay.
Yeah.
Give my brain a rest.
Yeah. Okay, so if I'll re-look at that and send an email round, and we'll try and get 2 sessions in on that if we can, because it's quite a big unit, isn't it?
Mhm.
I think that would work better than trying to put it in when your head's getting jumbled with this one, isn't it?
Yeah. Good idea.
Just shout me your exam date again for this one.
This one
14th.
now.
Yeah.
Mine's the 15th.
Is yours 14th, Ryan?
Yeah, 14th for me.
14th, 15th. So yeah, I'll set something up on that. So any other documentation you require from me, you think, for this one?
I've not looked through the stuff that you've got on there already, Dave, but have you got any worked examples of the calculations that you could share?
Yeah, I should have. I'm hoping, but I will double check whether I've put them on to. I'm trying now to put them on the test site so that it shows up on the.
Okay.
Although I think it only shows up if you get it wrong.
Yeah.
I will look. Is that on investment appraisal, you mean, and stuff like that?
Yeah, and that new one that you've told us about tonight, the
Yeah, the 3-point method.
yeah, 3-point method. If you could just break it down and show us how you would work it out, just so I can look at it.
Okay,
That'd be great.
I'll email you a worked example of that 3-point method. Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll do a simple one. Yeah, I say simple, but I'll do one that will give you the easy calculation how to do it. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, and the investment rate of return. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the numbers one, and then there's just a few technical things to learn on the contracts, aren't there? But I'm quite hopeful on this with the pass rates and what's on the syllabus that most people get it, don't they?
Yeah.
And the good thing is the answer is there, isn't it? So you don't have to learn the list too much. You just got to understand it at a certain level.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that.
Is that okay, right? That's good. I'm trying to get my head around, but I'll be glad when it gets back to normal, because I think we're starting virtual classes with Oxcom, and I really don't want to do them, but I will have to.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
no.
they're doing evening classes virtually. And I think I'm delivering them one night a week. Wonderful.
What are they doing about the intensive weekends?
Oh, I think it's just all off at the moment.
It's all got off. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, strictly, you should have had a full day on this and then a webinar, wouldn't you? So I suppose 2 sessions is okay, and you can email, can't you, and practice on the tests. So
Yeah.
I think it's just having the second one makes it probably harder, but I think get this one out of the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
So could you do to push? I know Ryan's quite rightly said 2 days. That would take Ryan's at 16th, but that would take you to 17th.
I don't mind doing the 16th.
I'm not saying we will, but you would consider that, yeah?
Yeah, 16th would be fine.
Okay, I'll get my head around that. Let's just check what the 16th is. Well, it's a Wednesday. Because your exam is it about
23rd, I think mine is.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's the 23rd too.
So yeah, so that would give us, I forget what the other day. So if we did a Wednesday and maybe we could do a short Sunday night, Sunday morning or something, couldn't we, for an hour or 2 maybe, or something. What would your preference on the weekend to get one in early? We've got, so if we did the 16th, say, just for argument's sake, would that do you? Or do you want another, say, Saturday, Sunday-ish? Sunday night?
Yeah, maybe like, oh yeah, or the Saturday morning, whatever.
Saturday, what do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, Saturday morning's fine.
Saturday, out of preference of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think any of us will be going anywhere, will we, that date? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I'll try and get that set up, so we're okay at that. And I'll get the videos put onto YouTube in the next few days and send you a link. And do you want the PowerPoints themselves? Are you quite happy? I can't remember if I've sent you them.
Yeah, you sent them. I asked for them last week because I was in the office printing stuff off.
You
so I
did,
thought,
yeah.
well, I'll
I've just
print
tweaked a
off
couple of
everything.
slides you might have noticed, but nothing too much, Ryan. I think I changed about 4 slides. Okay then.
Yeah, I'm sure I won't notice 4 out of 200 and something.
No, it's there, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. The revision notes are better. They're only 70 odd pages, aren't they?
I'll just go off them.
Yeah. I think of them and doing the mocks were fine. Yeah. Okay then. Any questions? Are we okay to go and watch repeats of repeats of repeats?
Yeah, that's what I'm come up with. Thanks very much.
I'm on to Lord of the Rings now, and I think film 4.
Oh, enjoy. I've never watched that.
Yeah, it's the second Hobbit one tonight, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, they're long films.
Oh, it was 3 hours and 20 minutes last night.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah, you lose the will to live a bit.
All right then, folks. Thanks ever so much, Dave. And I'll see you in a week or so. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.